After 3 parts that were occupied with setting the stage, the stress of her regard, the 4th episode of Foundation Season 3, finally ushers in the new era of Apple TV Plus's space opera. Now that Foundation Season 3 feat's new characters are established, they are ready to make a bigger impact on the overall plot. The rest of Foundation Season 3 will benefit from the huge Demerzel twist in the greatest way possible. It appears out of place to disclose that Lady Demerzel, Laura Byrne, was the mastermind behind the collapse of the Star Bridge in the Foundation premiere episode. Even though there's a lot of material to process, the stress of her regard gives it to the audience in the first few minutes of the show. I believe this conveys the author's confidence that there are even more significant disclosures and plot lines to come, even though it can be seen as unduly daring storytelling. If it had wanted to, the stress of her regard might have easily finished with this Demerzel scene, but it's wonderful that it didn't. The Foundation has once again managed to defy expectations by fusing its ambitiously lengthy plot with shorter and more realistic arcs. I found Gaal and Han's love story to be oddly distracting, but I'm sure it will pay off. In the stress of her regard, the space opera reveals events centered on Gaal Dornick, Lou Lobel, and Han Pritchard, Brandon P. Bell that had previously only occurred off-screen. I totally get Foundation's motivation for putting Gaal and Han in what ought to be an unworkable romance. I find it interesting to a certain degree, but at the present, it seems to be interfering with more intriguing plot lines. However, I believe that Han's proposal of marriage will ultimately lead to chaos for the second Foundation, which will be intriguing. Therefore, if the final reward is worth the wait, I don't mind watching the beginning of another slow-burning arc. I'm not sure if it's a good idea to begin this Gaal storyline now though, since the remainder of the season will be well underway by the end of episode 4. The most notable aspect of the stress of her regard is Brother Day's widespread disrespect for everything Imperial. The stress of her regard, Foundation Season 3 brilliantly builds tension for the return of its biggest villain, offers a gripping examination of the arguments made by both sides of the conflict about good against evil. It accomplishes this by avoiding packing the program with characters who unquestionably belong in one of the camps. The mule Pilu Asbek, who only makes an appearance in a flashback, is the most notable omission. The mule had no place in the stress of her regard, yet his exclusion from the episode seemed quite deliberate rather than the result of a bad luck situation.